Hey, welcome everyone to a review of the Sony ULT WEAR over-the-ear noise-cancelling headphones. If you want to see the written version of this review, you can find a link to my website in the video description. Now, bear in mind that this is basically a rebranding of the XB lineup. XB standing for extra bass, ULT standing for ultimate. Confusing, right? Typical Sony fashion, they rename something and make it even more confusing because XB made more sense, but hey, it's Sony. Kind of used to it by now. I want to make this very clear that they perform very well in all sound areas, lows, mids, and highs. But there's a big emphasis on lows for bass enthusiasts. So if you're not a bass enthusiast, you might want to go somewhere else and maybe not focus on these headphones. And how good is the bass? It is one of the best and deepest sound I've ever heard on any headphones that I have ever reviewed. It kind of reminds me of the days of when I had my first car, a 1995 Chevy Lumina. Yeah, that bad. In fact, all my friends thought it belonged to my dad, that it wasn't my car, and I tried to be cool by putting subwoofers in the trunk, and I did, and they used to blast. That was the coolest I've ever been in my life, and not much has changed since then. I'm still kind of a loser. But let's dive into the review. So here in Canada, they're priced at $349, and the USA, they're priced at $199. These are mid-tier priced headphones, obviously, but there are some problems here with pricing internationally. Because if you convert the US pricing to Canadian dollars, it's not $350, it's $272. So they increased the price by about $70. Why did Sony mark this up substantially here in Canada? For no apparent reason. In fact, they've done that with other headphones in other geographies. For example, these headphones are £179 in the UK, but that's cheaper than the US pricing. This is typical Sony fashion where they don't have consistent pricing internationally, so just be cautious of where you purchase them. Maybe look for them on a sale depending on where you live. For connectivity, it does support a wired and wireless connection. That wired connection uses an auxiliary port located on the left ear cup, and the cable that comes out of the box is measuring at about 48 inches. The cable on both ends is 3.5 millimeter, and one side is being an L shape. And here's some good news. You can use the headphones while the battery is dead, although that'd be a bit tough to do because the battery performance is amazing. More on that later. One thing to keep in mind is that you cannot use them while they're being recharged. Wireless connectivity is using Bluetooth 5.2, and the Sony documentation, you'll get about 32 feet of wireless range. In my testing, I had my source device on my main level of my house, and walking throughout my basement where I am right now, I can get around just fine. So I had about the same distance, but one floor in between, so better than Sony's wireless range claim. And it does support dual connectivity, which means you can have it connected to a phone and computer at the same time. And if your phone rings, media on your computer will pause and you can answer the call, and you kind of get the idea from there. And when it comes to how many devices you can keep in memory, according to Sony documentation, you can have 8 devices stored before you have to pair and learn a new device. In my testing, I got 4 devices, which is pretty good. Out of the box is a hard traveling case, which is nice to see, and it should be expected at this price point. The auxiliary cable is included in the box, which I mentioned earlier, and is 48 inches. There's also a USB charging cable measuring at 6 inches. Unfortunately, this is USB-A to USB-C and not a pure USB-C cable. There's no charging adapter included in the box, as you're expected to plug it in directly to a computer, which is what I typically do, or maybe use something like, say, your cell phone charger outlet for the wall. The physical design might exude allure for some folks, especially since it seems to take a nod at the excellent and premium Sony WH-1000 XM5 headphones, those same headphones that I mentioned earlier in this review. The ULT WEAR comes in 3 colors. They are available in black, as I have, white, and gray. It does have a folding design, and that's kind of evident when you have to put it into the case, and it weighs at 255 grams. Despite the weight, you would think that, it feels pretty sturdy and hefty in the hand. It doesn't. It feels kind of cheap. I'm not concerned if I drop it a couple times, it'll break any of the plastic or crack it, which, hey, it might be possible, but I kind of doubt that. But it doesn't feel as good as it should at this price point and given the weight. In fact, the Soundcore Space One, which is significantly cheaper and pretty darn good headphones in themselves, I'll put a link to that review in the description as well, feel much more well constructed and are much cheaper than these headphones. Just bear in mind, I have confirmed according to Sony documentation, these are not dust and water resistant. Now, when it comes to general comfort, I find them to be very, very comfortable. I can wear them for 4 to 5 hours straight with no discomfort, no sweaty ears. My head or ears don't get hot or irritated. It's just generally comfortable. And now as I quickly switch over, boop, when wearing them with glasses, in my testing, they feel great. There's no discomfort. There's no irritation of the glasses frame poking into my head. So it's pretty good in that regard as well. Although I do advise against wearing them when working out, simply because they're over-the-ear headphones. And when you work out, that's when your ears will get really sweaty and nasty. You'll get a bit irritating, but hey, you've been warned. So how is it that comfortable? Well, let's quickly take a look. The first is that the headband flex isn't too tight. It's not bad. The next thing to consider is how soft the cushioning of the ear cups are. They're pretty thick and soft, so they feel great against my head. And the last thing is the headband cushioning. It's very generous here for people who have little to no hair. It's very thick and soft. The ear cup rotation is superb when it goes up, down, forward, and back to kind of get around various head shapes and sizes. So far, there are no official ear pad replacements available from Sony, so will they ever make them in the future? I don't know, but they should have been available on day one. Third-party manufacturers don't have them available yet, but honestly, because they're just so new, just give it some time and I'm sure they'll be available shortly. So when taking them when traveling, because they are noise cancelling headphones, looking left and right isn't bad, but looking down is a bit of a pain in the butt because it hits the ear cups. But to get around that, simply fold them in and it's much more comfortable and they don't even dig into my neck at all. I feel just fine. And one more thing about the body design is that you can find it with a find feature. I've tested this with my Android cell phone in which you activate in the Bluetooth functions and the headphones will start to beep quite loud actually. Let's take a listen. Regarding controls, on the left ear cup at the bottom is a button for powering the device on and off, and holding the same button will activate Bluetooth pairing mode. Above that is a button to cycle between ANC, transparency, and regular headphone mode. ANC basically being active noise cancelling, which, kind of negative noise is passed into the microphones and cancels out exterior noise to the best of its ability. Transparency mode actually turns on the microphones and projects exterior sound into the headphones so you can hear surroundings clearly. And regular headphone mode is just no technologies, just simple dummy headphone mode. The ULT button. Pressing it once will activate ULT 1, which pushes bass performance substantially. Pressing it a second time activates ULT 2, which pushes the bass to an extraordinary amount, rumbling on your head. And pressing it again will go back to turning ULT mode off. So the most important, but not all the controls are primarily on the right ear cup, and they're all touch based. So double tap the middle to play pause audio or answer or hang up a call. Swipe forward for next track, swipe back for previous track, swipe up for volume up, swipe down for volume down. You kind of get that, right? If you hold the middle of the ear cup with one finger for a few seconds, it'll activate your voice assistant, or you can just use your voice assistant command. I've actually used Android and Google Assistant in my testing and it works great with voice command testing. Now, a neat thing that kind of has a drawback to it is that if you press and hold the entire ear cup with your palm, it'll quickly switch from active noise cancelling to transparency mode so you can hear your surroundings and quickly have a conversation, and the volume of your content lowers dramatically. The problem with this is that the content's still playing. It should have paused the content instead. And I find this kind of annoying because then you have to rewind your movie or whatever you're watching and then kind of resume content. Continuing on, side tone is available. So basically when you have the headphones on and you're on a phone call, what I'll basically do is try to have your voice and surrounding noise emphasized a little bit so you can hear it better if you're, say, originally on ASC mode. So it allows you to hear how loud you're talking potentially to the person on the other phone or how loud the surrounding noise to them on the microphone. And lastly, there is active play pause, which basically means when the headphones are on, content's fine. Take them off, content pauses automatically, and then put them back on, content automatically resumes. This function works fairly well. Okay, ANC. So despite these being mid-tier priced headphones, when it comes to canceling out low humming noises like say from a bus engine or plane, it performs almost to the same standard as premium headphones. The performance is stellar. So taking these for traveling on the go on a plane, I don't think I'd be disappointed, especially given that they're mid-tier priced. When it comes to vocals, it's not the best as premium headphones. It behaves more like its price point, mid-tier headphones. So some of the vocal noises around you, if you're like say on a noisy crowded bus station, for example, you will hear people's vocals come through quite a bit. But if you're listening to something like a podcast in which you have to really concentrate and listen to what's being said, I don't think it's a problem. Transparency mode, which allows you to hear your surroundings on purpose, is one of the best I've ever heard on any type of headphones, premium or mid-tier priced. Even if someone's talking about 15 feet away from me at decent volume, whether it be with my ears or with the headphones on, I still hear them almost just as clear. So one of the best transparency mode performances I've ever heard. Passive noise cancelling mode, so just simply wearing the headphones in dummy mode. Not much to speak about. Yeah, it kind of drowns out quite a bit of the noise around you because they're over the ear and the seal is pretty tight but comfortable. Nothing to talk about, mainly because you only really use that when you need to conserve battery, because turning off all the technology increases battery performance. which I'm going to talk about shortly, because battery performance overall is just stellar. In addition to that, you can adjust ANC levels on the app, so one more reason you don't really need dummy headphone mode. Okay, so what's the scoop with the battery? Now, according to Sony, they claim that when ANC is on, it'll last about 30 hours. And with all my testing in every scenario done at 50% volume, I actually average closer to 36 hours. And with regular headphone mode, Sony claims 50 hours, except I got 61 hours. So as you can see, battery performance overall when you're traveling is just gonna be incredible. Recharge time, Sony claims it takes about 3.5 hours. I actually got a little bit faster at 3 hours. And the charging USB port is located on the bottom of the left ear cup. Okay, so all the audio that you hear right now is coming from the ULT WEAR microphones in a quiet setting. When I switch over is to replicating a noisy environment and use the camera microphone to represent and show you how noisy it is, and then see if the ULT WEAR headphones can cancel a lot of the surrounding noise. And then lastly, we're going to do a wind test to see how it behaves in that kind of manner. Right now, the camera microphone is doing its thing. You can get an idea of how noisy it is around me. Switching over to the ULT microphone, let's see what you think for yourself in terms of cancellation of the surrounding noise. And I'm going to stop talking for a few seconds to let you hear if it still works well. And lastly, I have a fan sitting about 5 feet away from me in front to see if we can cancel a lot of the wind noise in the microphone or not. Now, when it comes to audio codecs, it supports AAC, SBC, and DSEE. Here's a weird thing. I can't get LDAC to work, and in the app, it specifically says it's not supported. So I'm not sure if there's something that will change with the firmware update later on, but that's currently not able to be used at this time. Out of the box, the quality is fantastic. You will notice, obviously, an emphasis on bass performance being pushed a little bit higher, but mids and highs aren't drowned out by any means. You'll just notice a bit more rumble with bass depending on what song you're listening to. Now, when it comes to adjusting with the equalizer, if you increase the bass, it can get pretty darn good, and it can thumping in your head. Now, the song of choice that I used for testing was Red Rum by 21 Savage. And what I did was leave the bass normal and turn on ULT mode because there's two modes. So using ULT 1, with that same song, the bass was just rumbling on my head. I could literally feel the vibration of the ear cups on my head and not at dangerous volumes. That even happens even below 50% volume. I've never actually experienced this with any headphones before. When you press ULT 2, it just rumbles completely on your head. Again, not dangerous. It doesn't hurt my ears or anything like that, but you will literally feel the vibration on songs that bass focused an extraordinary amount. It's kind of like the best comparison I can make is having subwoofers in your car, where you can feel the vibration around your head and all over your body. Well, imagine that just on the ear cups alone. So if that's what you love to do, is have subwoofers in your car and feel that intense rumbling bass, literally feel it, this will do it. I've never experienced it with any other headphones in my life. Again, as I mentioned, these are primarily focused for bass enthusiasts. Now, if you do want to decrease the bass, you can just keep ULT mode off and decrease the bass in the equalizer, which I'll demonstrate shortly. Although bass still kind of tries to push through, I've noticed, again, depending if it's like a rap song like I listen to. And here's the other thing, even with ULT mode on, whether it be 1 or 2, vocals and highs never get distorted. That's the thing that's very astonishing to me, is that the rest of the sound stays relatively clear. Now, speaking about vocals, when you increase it in the equalizer, it doesn't get increased a substantial amount. There's a bit of an emphasis you can notice, and it's just enough to get by, but that's not the key focus here. One of the interesting things I noticed is that when you increase the highs up, it gives songs like EDM or house music a lot more energy. It sounds good. In fact, when you increase the highs all the way up, it's not enough to pierce and annoy my ears, which some headphones do. It just sounds good, as it should be. It's really well balanced. Okay, so what about using them when wearing glasses? What's audio like? It's the exact same thing as any other over-the-ear headphones. So vocals and highs sound not bad, but like any other over-the-ear headphones, bass tends to leak out quite a bit because the glasses frame is curving out the ear cup cushioning, so a lot of the bass leaks out. There's one advantage that the ULT WEAR have over any other headphones I've used that are bass focused. If you're a big fan of bass, you want over-the-ear headphones and you wear glasses, no contact lenses. This might be the headphones to get. The reason being is because if you press ULT 1 or 2, whatever mode, it's pushing out so much bass that anything that leaks out, it kind of compensates and tries to push it beyond. So it sounds like there's more bass compared to other headphones, which there is. It's just that some of it's leaking out, but you have more going to your ears, if that kind of makes sense. Okay, so diving into the app, one of the annoying things about it is that it takes quite some time to open up. So if you want to quickly adjust something, some sort of feature in the equalizer or some other sound setting, it always takes this amount of time. I'm not sure why, but it's pretty annoying. And there you finally have it opened up. So the first thing you see is a status, which basically allows you to adjust adaptive sound control, which basically adjust ANC or transparency mode based on where you are. I find it to work just okay. It's not a great feature, I'd rather just adjust it manually, to be honest. You can see how many devices you have connected and what's in memory and what's playing at the time, which currently I have nothing. Switching over to the sound tab, this is where you can adjust what kind of ANC level you want. You can actually customize it, noise cancelling mode, ambient mode, or just regular headphone mode. Going over to the equalizer, you do have some preset settings built into it, but you can always just add some customization ones. And this is what I was talking about. You can adjust the equalizer as you wish, lows, mids, highs, but then you have ULT 1 and 2. Switching to ULT 2, you'll notice that it adjusts clear bass automatically to maximum. ULT 1 kind of keeps it at 0, but you can actually adjust it as you wish. And then you can have ULT off, but then adjust clear bass anyway. Another is 360 audio, which is kind of like spatial audio. But in order to use it, it's locked down to very specific applications. I've used like Bose headphones, which is a lot more open and free for other apps. Unfortunately, I think this is some sort of licensing thing where Sony restricts it to those services. You can prioritize Bluetooth sound quality over stable connection. I always use sound quality as my primary. And as you can see, LDAC is currently unavailable. You can enable DSEE audio if you want to. I just turn it on by automatic. And if switching over to system, here's you can choose how many devices you want to connect to. You can choose your voice assistant functionality. I've used the default on my device, which is Google Assistant. You can turn the touch sensor panel on or off, although you're limited to how you can control the headphones, so I usually leave it on. And the ANC button on the headphones, you can control which ones do you want to be able to cycle through. You can turn off one of them or have all three on. And then capture voice during a phone call is basically side tone mode. And some customization commands that you can have on the headphones as well as some power settings, whether it'll automatically power on or off, software updates, and so on and so forth. Lastly, if you go to services, these are some, again, I think it's licensing agreements with, like, say, Spotify as an example, where it'll automatically be available based on a certain gesture or command. So to conclude, the ULT WEAR is my daily driver for the time being. I'm really loving that thumping bass on my head. In fact, I'm using them over the Sony XM5s and the Sennheiser Momentum 4s. Both of them are super stellar headphones. I reviewed both of them, links to those reviews in the description. Really loving this bass here. Reminds me of the good old days with my 95 Chevy Lumina. And if the bass is too much for your liking and you're using these headphones, just decrease the bass in the equalizer and it's just fine. So with that said, I hope you found this video useful. If you did, be sure to check out my social links and website link in the video description. Hit the like button, it does help, subscribe, and thanks for watching.